An Act of Desperation, a short story by Maxim A. Goohs.
It's an act of desperation.
Gordo mutters as he stares at her dead body. He's got his back up against a tree trunk and ain't showing no emotion other than chewing that cigarette butt of his. He's always chewing his cigarette butt when he's mad. Gordo hates me more than anybody else, and it ain't just paranoia. I know it to be true because when he was sleeping, I read that little green notebook he keeps in his bag. So I know all he's got to say about me, and I tell you, it ain't too pretty. He hates Johnny too, but everybody hates Johnny. Hating Johnny's like hating the war. You do it passively, and in a way, you do it out of love. I start smoking because Johnny starts smoking, and Mom always said it's best to fit in. I can hold off when it's just Gordo, because he's always smoking. But when Johnny joins in, I can't help but hear Mama's voice in my head. He's got to make an effort, honey. You got to make an effort. If you had seen how happy she was when I took out Daphne Parkinson to win a formal, you'd be making an effort too. Daphne Parkinson was this real beauty, little broad around the shoulders, and I made sure Mama knew that I knew that. But she had this real nice skin that looked like the vinyl siding of them houses in West Chesterton, all white and polished and such. Much nicer than the skin of this dead girl lying in front of us.
Look at her hands.
Gordo says. I don't want to, but I can't help it. She's got mud under her fingernails. You can still see lines in the ground where she was grasping. Johnny gets that tension in his face that he always gets when he wants to tell a story about Illinois and bleachers and Woodmont High. That's the problem with boys like Johnny. They play their cards too quickly and everybody resents him for it. Once, Lieutenant Rogers shoved Gordo and told him to tell Johnny that we all hated his stories. Said that Gordo was the only one that could do it, because Johnny couldn't get mad at him. But Gordo said,
No, sir.
Because once you tell a man his stories are born, what else he got?
Shut the fuck up!
Johnny finally gets out, his face red and constipated. I can tell he's proud of himself for saying this, because he ain't hiding his dimples no more. But, to be fair, I never met anybody who was worse at hiding their dimples than Johnny Dokes was.
You think you're a poet, don't you?
Johnny don't dare look Gordo in the face when he says this. He instead looks off at the mountains to his right. His cheeks keep twitching up, revealing those goddamn dimples. Funny thing is that Gordo is a poet. That green journal's chock full of them. Now, mind be it, most are about fucking his girl back home, but every man's got his cup of tea. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't like reading them as much as I did. I look down at the body again, and this time I feel sick. My eyes keep coming back to those lines in the mud where her fingers were grasping. You'd have thought that bullet would have killed her just like that. You know, like a light bulb going out. But the thought of her lying there, all that blood coming out of her ears, making her hair all wet, and her hands doing all they could to hold on to something, anything, I don't know, makes me sick. But I can't stop myself from looking. I think Gordo notices this, because he just stares at me and shakes his head. His square jaw looks heavy, as if he's holding it shut. His tongue's going back and forth across his teeth like window wipers, forcing them hot and sticky words back down his throat. Unlike everybody else, Gordo understands that everything out here is hot and sticky, and it don't help nobody to make it hotter and stickier by letting them words run free. Because sooner or later, you're gonna find that life's only tolerable if you start mouthing off about it. Mr. Lansing from back home once said that the best whetstone for the pointless speech is silence. And he was a knight of Columbus, so you'd be doing yourself a disservice by not listening to what he's got to say about these sort of things. Johnny's a good example of them boys who just don't get it. I watch him as he looks out at the mountains. He don't need to bite no cigarette butt to show he's angry. You can see it on the lines of his face and the way he pulses his fist open and closed like he's breaking a walnut. But Gordo ain't paying him no attention. Gordo don't care when Johnny gets upset because he's wiser than Johnny. And a wise man shouldn't never fear his lessers. Because the moment he do that, then he ain't wise no more, is he? Whenever I was shaking in my boots and Mama could see it, she'd just smack me on the head and remind me that Jesus didn't shake when they was nailing him down. That's why you gotta fear the Lord, because we his lessers. Now Gordo ain't no Jesus, but he don't shake none when Johnny gets upset. He just drags on his cigarette a little longer than normal and runs that tongue of his along them teeth. Johnny lies his rifle in the grass and looks back at the dead girl's body. His lips part slightly as he spreads a hand across his face his fingers noticeably whiter than them cheeks they're covering. His eyes stare at me through the gap of them fingers.
You don't talk fucking none, and then you go and do something like this.
He lowers his hand and leans forward over the body. All of a sudden it seems that he's about to start weeping. The veins in his face swell till they're blue, and the pink bags under his eyes puff out all ugly like. He then looks up to heaven and flushes his shoulders back, as if he's praying. As if he's asking God, God, will I ever see Illinois again? And them bleachers in Woodmont High? But God don't answer him none, 'cause he don't want to make poor little Johnny Dokes any more depressed than he already is. For God knows that even if Johnny was to go home, he'd realize they don't want him there no more, no matter how hard he prayed. Truth is, there ain't nothing sadder than a man whose eyes have aged faster than his spirit, and God knows that more than anything. Then, all of a sudden, as if a demon crawls in his skin, Johnny comes alive and throws his hands onto the girl's body. He begins tearing at her clothes, ripping them off in strips of blue and green and screaming,
Why'd he do that? Why'd he do that?
Shocked by this perverse action, Gordo breaks the wiry hold of his jaw and shouts.
What the fuck are you doing?
But Johnny don't answer him none and just keeps ripping and yelling.
Why'd he do that? Why'd he do that?
He rips and she's half naked by the time Gordo knocks him to the ground and pins him with his knees. I put my hands to my ears 'cause I can't stand the noise.
Why'd he do that? Why'd he do that?
Calm the fuck down.
Johnny squirms, his fists flailing violently. His helmet falls off and rolls a couple feet away.
Why'd he do that? Why'd he do that?
Calm down, John.
My hands are shaking round my ears, and I'm feeling more sick than ever. But I keep a straight face and just watch. Watch till that demon's done his work and sneaks out of his skin again, leaving Johnny all quiet with his arms limp at his side. He's got his eyes closed now, and there's tears streaming down his face. His chest is trembling under the weight of Gordo's knees. We're all quiet for a good long time, making sure that demon don't crawl back in. And then Johnny, looking off at them mountains again, whispers real quiet.
Why can't he speak?
Hearing this, Gordo gets off him and leans his back against the tree trunk again. He lights another cigarette, as his other had fallen to the ground during the tussle. Johnny sits up and looks at me. For the first time, there ain't no lines on his face, and there ain't no dimples. He parts his lips again, but there ain't no words either. He stands to his feet, grabs his helmet, and walks off silently into the nearby woods. Gordo don't bat an eye over this, and just wires up that square jaw of his again. We both know he'll be back, 'cause even Johnny realizes that me and Gordo are all he's got in this world, and he sure as hell don't know the Vietnamese word for bleachers.
An Act of Desperation, a short story by Maxim A. Goohs.